I'd like to welcome everyone to the second half of day 3 at SEMA. And today we're having a little sit down with Gerry Bonanni from Ford. So Gerry, introduce yourself and let's get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gerry Bonanni. I'm a senior engineer for paint and body damageability repair at Ford Motor Company. I just hit my 30 years at Ford this year, and thank you. Good stuff, and it's been a great ride, and I'm really proud to be with you today. Glad to be here.
All right, Gerry, so every year I think we touch on this. It's one of your favorite subjects in the world, and we're going to start off with rivets today and Ford vehicle repair.
Well, you know, none of us in this room would do a weak MIG plug weld or a faulty MIG seam weld when we're repairing a vehicle for a structural repair. The same thing applies to rivets. On all of our rivets on the aluminum-intensive vehicles, the F-150, the Super Duty, the Expedition Navigator, all of those vehicle families utilize self-piercing rivets. And in doing so, you have to make sure that you use the proper Ford rivets and you absolutely follow the rivet diagrams in our workshop manual. Why is this so critical? Do you know that there's a piece of trivia for you? There's over 67 rivets in the typical F-150 styles of rivets when that vehicle is manufactured. If Ford Motor Company could drop that down to, say, 10 or 20 rivets, we'd save a lot of money, wouldn't we? Everyone's nodding. That would save a tremendous amount of money. So pray tell how some of these aftermarket companies that are selling counterfeit rivets, and I say counterfeit, are selling these saying that they will fit numerous rivets on our truck. Something's got to give somewhere, and none of us want to build an unsafe vehicle. So by all means, follow the rivet procedures and the rivets that are called out in the factory workshop manual directly from Ford. Never, ever, ever purchase aftermarket rivets of any form. That could be from any of the number of vendors even in this room. Do not purchase other than from a Ford Motor Company dealership. And there's going to be some out there that say, oh, it's just the same. There's no difference. There's no difference at all to it. No problem. Well, we all remember major lawsuits like the John Eagle lawsuit. It was a series of small mistakes that wound up ruining a wonderful couple's life. We don't want to do that in any of our repairs. So to further that, go on to FordCrashParts.com and look at our new position statements. There's a great position statement that we have kind of cleaned up, added some more material to for the rivets as far as the proper use of them and selecting them. There's also a lot of other great position statements on clear coat blending, wheel repair, structural repairs, and on and on and on. Some great stuff, Scott.
You know, so you have to have the right rivet, but you also have to have that the panels you're putting on correctly, because so many people still think, you know, after all the years of working with rivets, that, well, if it's close enough, it'll pull it together, it'll be fine. But that's never been the case. I don't know where that got started or why people think of that. They think spot welders will do it, they think rivets will do it, but none of them do that.
They don't do it. And, you know, we've all probably flown on a plane. When we were walking up to our plane, coming out here perhaps, you saw those beautiful rivets on the fuselage. Imagine if you're walking up to that plane and that rivet was overset, like pushed in too far into the metal, or if it was pushed too shallow. So the correct rivet, each rivet on that truck, when it's being determined what rivet fits where, is actually sectioned in half, and it's analyzed under an electron microscope. That's how the science of this works. So you don't want to dance with that science. You not only want to use the correct rivet, but the correct mandrel to drive that rivet by one of our approved rivet guns. Nothing is left to chance. If you look at the position statement I just talked about, that is documented very, very clearly in there. So FordCrashParts.com, go to position statements, and you'll see a lot of great info. Furthermore, in all of our iCar training, we express and we really push the fact that you have to put the rivets in their correct locations. Funny story for you, Scott. A few years ago at SEMA, a guy comes up to me and says, hey, I'm doing a video on doing the F-150 bedside replacement. I said, oh, yeah? Tell me about it. Nice guy, had a nice wife, nice children with him. And I said, so I started quizzing him on the rivets. And he goes, well, you could just put the rivets wherever you want, right? I said, no, there's 3 different rivet coats just for that repair alone, and that's in the wheel well. There's other areas you can't use self-piercing rivets. Well, I figured out a way I can do it. Okay. So I told him, I said, immediately take that video off of YouTube. Take it down now. So have we heard the term, nod your heads if you've heard it, YouTube certified? You guys know what that means? That means false experts that are telling you how to repair vehicles. There's a saying in the Bible, right? Beware of false prophets. Also beware of false industry people saying a certain way to repair our vehicle, because it's pretty scary. And again, beware of false prophets, right?
Yeah, I know we've done quite a few articles around that, talking about, when you're laying out your repair, color coding where the rivet locations are, because, within one repair, you might have 3 different sections that have different rivets, and when you have the adhesive on there, it's very hard to go, oh, now I got to switch out this mandrel, and it's a different one for this, to go through and go, okay, here are all my yellows, here's all my blues, and I can go around and do that, because when you have, hour and a half, that's not a lot of time if you're doing a whole outer uniside or something like that. Yep. And so mapping it out is just as important as you have to have the right rivets, but then you mapping it out so you get them in at the right time in the right place.
Absolutely. Well, very well said. Very well said. So I don't want to beat the rivet subject too much further, but you want to get me fired up, talk rivets. But the thing about it is we all want to make a safe vehicle when we're repairing that vehicle for that customer, and with good reason. I got to tell you, the crash safety teams I work with, there's some tough people. And I mean people that have been in crash safety since, no kidding, one guy's been there since '69. And when I say they're tough, they are unrelenting. And when I told them about some of the aftermarket rivets, they were horrified. So take some advice from those guys. If not from me, use the proper rivets and the proper mandrels, buy one of our approved guns. Can we go on to another happier subject now?
Yes, we are, right now. So we've talked a lot about the Ford Explorer rails, made out of some very high-strength steel, boron steel, but now you have a sectioning procedure available in a very specific area, in a very specific way. Yes. So it's not a universal, doesn't apply to everything, but there is a procedure in the workshop manuals today.
Yes. We had a very talented crash safety group team along with our welding team, and I brought up the issue that the Explorer in particular and other unibodies do not have a rear frame rail sectioning. Many Explorers get totaled because putting an entire frame rail into that unistructure, you're cutting that vehicle apart to ribbons. Now, it's a boron steel rail, and you say, oh, shouldn't section boron. Well, this has been blessed by our crash team as well as our welding team. Follow the procedure to the letter. It involves the use of a backer and a squeeze-type resistant spot welder to keep the heat-affected zones down. Now, in certain other areas of the repair, you'll be doing MIG plug welds, and again, that is authorized in our steel repair matrix. If you look at the current factory shop manual for the Explorer, it shows different sectioning options for that rear rail. It's a godsend because many of these vehicles have been totaled needlessly when you're only talking about 2 inches maybe of damage at the rear rail. So look out for that. If you're estimating one, instead of looking at an entire rear rail, see the 3 different cut lines that we have available to you and save that vehicle in a very, very least invasive way of doing the repair. It's a good one. And we're actually doing an iCar video on that, correct?
We are.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and, I think that, it's a little bit different, too, because I know when we first talked about it, it was originally we weren't going to be doing, like, welding the seams. You're going to rely on the backer. But now, after engineering took a further look at it, that's changed, correct?
It has. The procedure that you see in the book is the final procedure. And everything that's in there is documented. The average technician pulling up the Ford shop manual can see that procedure. And when you're estimating the vehicle, remember, it's a tremendous savings of labor, but also you're much less invasive to the vehicle. Great way to repair it.
And you're allowing MIG brazing in that where you section it, correct?
The section joint can be MIG brazed. We offer that as an option. Okay. But again, you're keeping the heat affected zone down.
Yeah, and so you're really allowing technicians to kind of choose between steel welding or MIG brazing for that joint. It's whatever their preference is.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And what they're comfortable with and trained on and equipment for.
yes. Yep, exactly.
So one of the other things that I always like to bring up, because kind of on that same order, was the F-150, the running boards being torn out. We've done videos on it, but
Yes.
I think that really shows, the industry coming and asking questions. We can affect really, truly quality repairs and much less intrusive repairs, but if we never ask the questions, nothing ever changes.
Exactly. The inner rocker panel on the F-Series vehicles may be sectioned. Picture the scenario. A vehicle is running through, let's say an oil field was a typical repair, and the running boards get bottomed out, and it rips the running board studs off of the inner rocker. In doing so, the best way to repair that is to cut the damage. There's kind of flutes underneath on the inner rocker, and you can weld in sections of those flutes with the replacement studs on them.
Yeah, and
Very straightforward, very simple. Yeah.
yeah, and it's one that there was already information in the manual, but it wasn't. You had to you read it and it's like it was allowed, but nobody was really comfortable with just cutting out that little piece because it's just something that is a little bit different than we're used to. And so that's why I really applaud Ford for being able to work with us to get the word out there and really show that, yes, you can do that and it's a quality repair. We did the video on it. And, for such a small damage, to cut that entire rocker out and the uniside off, that's just insane to do all that work for something so small.
Least invasive, simple repair you can do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, Gerry, is there any other subjects we've been up here talking that you want to make sure we touch on? What comes to mind for you?
Well, one of the key ones, and I've been doing it at the show, reviewing a lot of the frame equipment with my friends. All my frame vendors are friends of mine. And one of the key things in holding the F-Series vehicles, and that's not only F-150 and Expedition Nav, but also the Super Duties, holding the frame is critical during a collision repair. We offer so many sectioning options for that frame. It's phenomenal. We are truly best in class. And not just for the F-Series, but also for the Ranger, for the Bronco. We offer some great options to repair that frame. Short stub sections for the front, longer forward sections that go right up to the toe board area of the vehicle, a complete rear frame section, numerous bracketry. We've got tons of bracketry. But one of the key things to do first is you've got to pull the vehicle back to dimensional stability. Well, these are tough frames, folks. I mean, these are tough frames. And so when you're looking at it, one of the critical things and what we do with the Ford Certified Network is talk about the F-Series or the full frame holding systems that are out there with all of our frame vendors. Beware that you're looking at systems like Evo and all the other brands that you have within the brands, the options, and the ability to hold the frame properly, but also remove the rubber cab mounts is critical to properly repairing these vehicles. So what happens a lot of times, if a vehicle goes into an event, the frame hits the front, whatever it's hitting, and the cab keeps moving forward. You kind of bend the cab mount areas of the cross members of the body. Well, that's where the billet comes in, putting a billet cab mount in place of the rubber ones, and then you pull the frame together with the body.
Okay.
So, and we've said that since the beginning of the F-Series launch, but just reinforcing it that when you're looking at your certified, if you're looking at getting certified at Ford for the your body shop, remember that you're going to be looked at as far as what your frame equipment is and what holding equipment you have for the series of frame vehicles we carry. So just be aware of that to do it right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, you're talking about full frame vehicles, but it really, even the unibody vehicles are so much stronger and harder. They don't move. I mean, you can cut the uniside off, have everything out of there, and it used to be you'd have to support the car and hold it all kinds of places. Now it doesn't move really at all. It's kind of insane, but you still have to have additional mounting locations underneath to hold things because it's so strong when you're doing those pulls. And I think that's something that a lot of people overlook in general.
We leave that. We do not document those, Scott. We don't document on how to hold our vehicles. We are writing to a trained technician that understands his or her frame rack system, their measuring system. We look at it as a trained tech will understand the techniques. Much like we don't document in our workshop manual exact welding techniques and settings. We looked at the trained technician, their ICAR training level, their certifications, their local certifications, and we determine with that their ability to repair the vehicle is up to them. They're signing off on that repair. They're in the best position. The same with frame repair. When you get trained by one of these major frame rack companies and you have the equipment, we rely on your training, your experience, and you've got the vehicle right in front of you to make the best decisions on what you're going to do. You are the doctor at that point. You make the decision what's best for the patient. So I guess that sums it up in a nutshell, that we look at the trained technician to properly hold, anchor, pull the vehicle, measure the vehicle correctly, and then perform whatever sectioning and what other repairs that are needed. And again, I can't, sometimes they get calls from shops and they say, can you make a judgment on this? And they send me a single shot picture of it. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I don't have it in front of me. It's not in front. It's like, calling the doctor and saying I got a headache. Well, okay, I can't diagnose you over the phone, right? Same thing with looking at something like that.
So when you were talking a little bit earlier about the frame sectioning options on the full frames, and so that front stub is what I would consider a true sectioning joint, where a lot of the other ones, you're actually separating out a seam and then the service part sleeves in and you're welding that up. Can you just kind of go through and explain that a little bit more? Because I think that's a thing that is confusing to a lot of people when they look at the manual and they don't necessarily understand what they're doing when they're separating that up, that seam.
All of our sectioning options for the frames of our vehicles, of our full frame vehicles, are done at factory joints. Now, certain brands will give you a cut line and say, cut the frame here, and then you're welding it, and you're doing this, and you're doing that. All of ours are at factory joints. So when you're looking at the short stub section on F-Series, give you an example, that's a natural factory joint. That's a natural welded joint, and we sell a ton of those sections, a ton of them, because generally speaking, the vehicle has not been damaged that much, but it's severe enough that it damaged the frame in that area. But you know what our most popular one is? The bumper brackets. We sell, I want to say like 100,000 a year of just the bumper brackets. So when you look at that, we try to stay with everything at factory joints at Ford. Now unibodies, you can't do that. So we offer cut lines and we specifically dictate where those cut lines are. But as far as full frame, they are at factory joints.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of technicians, if they haven't done one before, to understand that normally you're cutting off the damaged part and then you're grinding back to get that, so it's really, like you said, it's separating it at a factory seam, even though you're cutting something and then grinding it back and then sleeving it in. And, it kind of goes back to when you're doing that repair, your little 110 welder is probably not the one you want to be using on that thick frame material.
Trained technician.
Even if it says it can do it, that doesn't have enough energy to put into that frame to really get a quality weld. And it's either the welder or the welder, right? So it's one of those things that I think a lot of people kind of overlook that part of it. And they say, well, I've got this welder, it works great. But do you have the right welder for the material you're working with?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's well said. I mean, when you look at separating those joints, and I've done a lot of them, you're basically just taking a whizzer and you're cutting the weld. And at that point, you chisel gun it and you're popping it apart. It's not difficult to do. But people, sometimes people overthink it. And it's like, once they get into it, they realize, oh, that wasn't so bad. So.
Yeah. All right. So we're getting to about that time. Anything else that you can think of that we got to cover that we didn't talk about?
I just want to say, look at the latest equipment at the show. Pick up what information you can from these vendors. You have a tremendous amount of talent within this room alone. Look at all the experience of those people. And we work closely with a lot of them. And be sure that you keep your equipment up to date, your training up to date. And above all, research the repair using the Ford, especially using Ford-only original manuals. Don't go with any other sources. Don't go with any YouTube-certified experts. And above all, follow your gut and do exactly what is the right thing, using the factory procedures with the correct tools in your training and experience. That's the best I could say. And above all, think of your customer as if it was your mom or your dad or someone that you love getting into that vehicle. We try to give everything we can to help you make a safe repair, and it's you are the ultimate judge of that. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it, buddy.
I appreciate you coming out, and have a great rest of your show.
Thank you.